what this is the biggest scientific endeavor in human history. It is also the first planetary-level scientific endeavor. They have pulled out all the stops on the public relations campaign and the disinformation campaign. I think they're hiring public relations firms. You can look back to 1961. There was a famous Rear Admiral, Luis de Flores. He advocated that the U.S. government should, quote, start now to make control of weather equal in scope to the Manhattan District project, which produced the first A-bombs. Many scientists involved in the atmospheric sciences and weather modification have referred to nuclear bombs as something that might be used in the atmosphere to control the weather. And in 1958, there were high-altitude atmospheric detonations of nuclear bombs in Operations Argus, Newsreel, Hardtack, and Starfish. Geoengineers themselves have testified before Congress. There were hearings in Geoengineering Parts 1, 2, and 3. You can get these PDFs off the Internet. And 3 times the geoengineers who were testifying before Congress that day made mention of the Manhattan Project. Weather modification is the most provable aspect of this program. I believe the fact that the aluminum and barium may be harming our brains, I believe that's just really a residual effect. But back in 1961, Bernard Vonnegut, along with 2 other authors, wrote a paper called Research in Electrical Phenomena Associated with Aerosols. And the experiments that they recounted in this paper were of a metal sphere inside of a chamber, and the sphere was connected with a ground wire to the bottom of the chamber. And they would shoot electromagnetic energy at this sphere and record the results. I forgot to mention that the sphere would be filled with gas. They would record the results in relation to the ground wire that it was attached to. And if you read the paper, they refer to the sphere that is in the chamber surrounded by gas. They refer to it as a man's head. And they refer to the ground wire as the man's body. The programs going on here is probably mind control, and there are other documents. In the case of California, what always comes to mind is that they're probably causing this drought in order to bankrupt farmers and then have the moneyed interests, such as the big banks, come in and swoop up that farmland that they know is really so valuable. And then, after they buy the farmland, well, the next thing you know, it's raining again and the reservoirs are full, I have to be clear, I do not believe that commercial jet airliners are spraying chemtrails significantly. I have seen very little evidence of this and very little documentation. The only document I know of that says that commercial jet airliners may be spraying us is the Welsbach seating patent, which states that aluminum oxide may be injected into jet fuel. What I have seen a lot of evidence of are dedicated chemtrail spray planes. I believe the chemtrail spray planes are drones. They do not require pilots. The technology to fly jumbo jets remotely has been around for a long time. Here, I can just read the titles of them, and people can go and check. And all of these PDFs talk about using aluminum as a nucleant, as they call it, for the purpose of weather modification. Okay, the first one here is called Experimental Investigations on the Ice-Forming Ability of Various Chemical Substances. And then in 1962, we had patent number 3,274,035 and the title of it is Metallic Composition for Production of Hygroscopic Smoke. And this was this patent was granted to Lore A. Burkhart and William G. Finnegan. And it describes how aluminum, barium, and strontium may be used as ingredients in, quote, a composition which produces hygroscopic smoke for use in influencing the weather. And then in 1964, we have U.S. patent number 3,140,207, and the title is Pyrotechnic Composition. And it's also authored by one author of the previous article I just mentioned, Lore A. Burkhart. That's L-O-H-R, middle initial A, last name B-U-R-K-A-R-D-T. And he and another author describe how in a Pyrotechnic Composition of 1964, this is a patent, he describes with the other author how aluminum can be used in compositions which have, quote, use in cloud seeding. I believe it's actually a completely counterfeit division of our military that's probably been created by the banksters without the proper authorizations and not through the proper channels. And I think that there's a cult of global warming attached to it as well. Number one is Raytheon. Everywhere you turn, it's Raytheon. They have all the HARP patents. They acquired Hughes Aerospace, which is probably a player in this project. They were big into radars, and I believe they worked with satellites. Well, I'm actually reading some books right now about Hughes Aerospace, but they did a lot after Howard Hughes died. So they were one of the leading military contractors for a long time. They were acquired by Raytheon after doing work in weather modification and the atmospheric sciences, and they are, of course, the assignees of the Welschbach patents, and they are a public company, so shareholders could launch some type of revolt there. DARPA has been very instrumental in this whole thing all along. I think that they may be running the project. They're probably running the project above Raytheon, probably telling Raytheon what to do. Or that the Internet may have been created as a network to record weather data, and DARPA has been instrumental in the HARP array up in Alaska. And then the last group that I would recommend would be the CIA. It seems the more developed the country, then the more weather modification, the more of the new Manhattan Project they get. But this is my speculation. I think the chemtrail program is going to be shut down this year because the bankster establishment got caught on October 8th, 2013. Maybe you can tell me what happened on October 8th, 2013.
We had a crash, didn't we?
October 8th, 2013 was the date that the bankster establishment tried to detonate a nuclear bomb over Charleston, South Carolina. They came and dug up the nukes out of the ground at Dyess Air Force Base. Out of the Dyess Air Force Base, the people at the Air Force Base didn't even know they were there. And they dug them up, and guys at the base were like, what the heck is this? You're digging up nukes, and now you're taking them out? Because these guys came, and they just dug them up and started taking them out. And they asked them where they're going, and they said Charleston Harbor. The corporate media, they barely covered it. All they said was that the military nuke commanders got fired because they were using counterfeit poker chips. That was the Obama administration's attempt to purge the military of the good guys who prevented the nuke from being detonated over Charleston Harbor. They had the nuke dragged out way into the ocean and detonated under the water so that no one really knew it went off, but there are seismic reports. If you're running the military and you believe in the Constitution and you have people in your military who try to detonate a nuke over one of your own cities, you have to purge those people from the military. You have to retaliate. You have to confiscate their document. Well, I do believe that there are many more good guys in our military than bad, and I think that if the U.S. military turns their might against them, that they have no chance. And so, what I think that has happened since then, our military has been able to, this is all speculation, but I think our military has since then probably had a chance to go over, their whole thing and find out what all their operations are. Probably taken them some time to figure all this out. It's going to take the military to shut this thing down. If it was easy to shut this thing down, it would have been shut down. Yeah, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the military held a press conference one day and said that they've shut the thing down. They were impersonating the military. This is not us, and they got away with it for a while, but we have now shut it down, and I think the public would applaud them. Of course, the corporate media would do whatever they do. Who cares? Well, I think this current project probably goes back to Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla died in 1943. That was 3 years before the launch of the scientific era of weather modification. Back in 1946, 3 scientists from General Electric Labs famously launched the scientific era of weather modification. They started the commercial cloud seeding industry. And from these 3 scientists, Irving Langmuir, Bernard Vonnegut, and Vincent Schaefer, I believe also the evidence shows that the New Manhattan Project was born. And I think, I have yet to see this, I have yet to see evidence of Nikola Tesla's direct involvement, such as documents that he has produced, showing the New Manhattan Project and how you might be able to modify the weather using electromagnetic energy and possibly dispersed particles. But Nikola Tesla is famous for musing about weather modification, and if you're familiar with the work of Nikola Tesla, you know that he did a lot of musing about a lot of different things. And we do also know that after Nikola Tesla died, the FBI came in and confiscated all his papers because they said, well, this was their excuse. They said that he was a national security threat. So the government did get all his papers, all the things that he was musing about and never published. And I think 3 years is plenty of time to go through all those documents and then possibly launch into this giant weather control endeavor. What this is the biggest scientific endeavor in human history. It is also the first planetary-level scientific endeavor. They have pulled out all the stops on the public relations campaign and the disinformation campaign. I think many scientists involved in the atmospheric sciences and weather modification have referred to nuclear bombs as something that might be used in the atmosphere to control the weather. And in 1958, there were high-altitude atmospheric detonations of nuclear bombs in Operations Argus, Newsreel, Hardtack, and Starfish. Geoengineers themselves have testified before Congress. There were hearings in Geoengineering Parts 1, 2, and 3. You can get these PDFs off the Internet. And 3 times the geoengineers who were testifying before Congress that day make their hiring public relations firms. You can look back to 1961. There was a famous Rear Admiral, Luis de Flores. He advocated that the U.S. government should, quote, start now to make control of weather equal in scope to the Manhattan District Project, which produced the first A-bomb. Made mention of the Manhattan Project. Weather modification is the most provable aspect of this program. I believe the fact that the aluminum and barium may be harming our brains, I believe that's just really a residual effect. But back in 1961, Bernard Vonnegut, along with two